they were actually not so much concerned about the axis of resistance as by the Shia arc, or the Shia crescent that they used to call it, extending from the oil fields of Saudi Arabia into Bahrain, into Iraq, into Lebanon, Syria, and on into Lebanon. Okay, and there was a feeling that the Sunni monarchies are being hemmed in by this rising Shia crescent, and it was quite remarkable to be in Abu Dhabi and listen to language about Iran 5 years back, which was almost identical to the Israeli language. Like Israel, the Gulf Arabs also were beginning to see Iran as an existential threat to their comfortable way of life, with absolute monarchies and lots of petrodollars, right? There were no tears shed when Iran was weakened, or when Hezbollah was weakened, or when Hamas was weakened. But I think it's a case of hubris for Netanyahu when he chose to target Qatar. Now it was one of us being attacked. And that dramatically changed the equations. And, you know, so it's one of those things where even the smartest player can make the wrong move, and that's what Israel did with Netanyahu by overplaying their hand. And suddenly finding that a Trump administration, which is most supportive of anything, had virtually given them a carte blanche, is today putting the pressure on them. So I'll just leave it at that.
Can I? Sorry, please. Please.
So I want to lay out that the problem in this is the increasing right-wing influence on Israeli government through successive elections. The center is narrowing. The right wing, which Navdeep mentioned about setting up new settlements and all, is increasing. The problem is this domestic governance of Israel, which will not allow a settlement and which emboldened Hamas to do many of the things General Sudhakarji said, right? So, if you don't resolve Israel's domestic political contradictions, you are not going to get any solution. It took 70 years for a person like me to start believing that Holocaust is done. I think the Israelis need to pay down. And this is not only me. I think the Germans, the French, many Europeans today who are staunch supporters of Israel believe that they have done beyond the Holocaust. And that is why I think there's a problem over there.
Okay. There is another angle, ladies and gentlemen, that will do us good to understand. What is it that the Hamas are driven by? What is the central paradigm? We need to understand. Hamas, the founding charter, published in August 1988, it articulated a clear ideological framework rooted in Islamic principles. Listen to this is very interesting. The document characterized Hamas as an extension of the Muslim Brotherhood's intellectual tradition while emphasizing Palestinian nationalism through the Islamic lens. The Article 11, ladies and gentlemen, of the Charter, it declared the land of Palestine is an Islamic waqf trust. It means trust. Trust, endowed for Muslim generations until the day of resurrection, establishing a theological basis for the movement's rejection of territorial compromise. This is very, very important. This is the primary factor as to why Hamas is behaving. One more point, sir, if you allow me. 1988, ladies and gentlemen, Charter called for the destruction of Israel and the establishment of an Islamic state in all the historic Palestine. However, please, I'm underscoring this sentence. However, in 2007, Hamas unveiled a revised charter that removed explicit anti-Semitic language and acknowledged the possibility of a Palestine state along the 1967 border, though it stopped short of formally recognizing Israel. That's it, sir. Back to you.
Okay, we've got it.
I just want one fact to bring.
Yes, Ambassador.
So, when I spoke earlier, I forgot to mention this. You know, when that vote in the UN on Resolution 181 took place, and if you watch the movie The Exodus, all the Jews are listening on the radio to that. It was won by one vote. Thailand did not vote. 10 countries abstained, 13 including India and Pakistan opposed, 33 supported. Out of 57 countries present and voting, the resolution needed 33, and that is what they got because the Soviet Union, Belarusia and Ukraine, all three supported the partition of Israel. This is odd in looking back from today. Thank you.
If I may add to what the ambassador just said, ladies and gentlemen, January 25, 2006, Hamas incidentally is also a political party. We mustn't forget about it. It won the election against Fatah and it won 74 out of 132 seats, ladies and gentlemen. Palestinian, that is in the Palestinian Legislative Council, and the Fatah party had only 45 seats. Second point I wish to highlight is that United States, European Union, United Nations and Russia, they put all the quartet they called as put an embargo and sanction against Hamas simply to put pressure on Hamas to identify and recognize Israel. That's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now we come down to the October 2025 peace plan, if you can call it a peace plan, but Ambassador Suri differs with me on calling it a peace plan. Could you tell me why?
Look, I think the Trump plan is useful to the extent that it has established a ceasefire. It's useful to the extent that it's brought the bloodletting to a halt. To my mind, it is almost as full of holes as that piece of Swiss cheese that we saw in terms of the West Bank. My concerns are principally the following. Number one, Israel continues to occupy 60% of Gaza behind this new thing that we've created called the Yellow Line. There is no time frame on Israeli withdrawal. Number two, even if the Qataris and the Egyptians prevail on Hamas to disarm, and there are conversations taking place on what does disarmament mean, does it mean doing away with the rockets, but keeping the small arms? Because actually what you don't want is a state of lawlessness that happened in Iraq after the de-Baathification. You do want one actor at least who has the guns, right? And right now, in the absence of any other, Hamas is the one. Number three, will it be the international stabilization force which will disarm Hamas? Probably. Do we have a composition of the force? Who's going to lead it? What are the terms of engagement of that force? Are they allowed to, are they peace enforcers? All of those issues to me. And finally, there's a very reluctant point 19 in that 20-point plan by Trump, which says once the reconstruction of Gaza is underway, once the conditions of peace are established, then we will hopefully look at the possibility of some eventual Palestinian state, right?
So it's highly nebulous.
Short sentence.
That is not a formula for peace. That is a formula for procrastination. We've got a crisis now. Let's douse it. Let's put the fire out. You've done that partly. The rest will follow. I will not be holding my breath.
Come, Sudhakar.
Ladies and gentlemen, it will do us good to understand also, link up with what Ambassador Puri has said, that the moot requirement or the bottom line requirement demand of Hamas is Palestinian self-determination, refugee rights, East Jerusalem status, and the end of occupation. If these aspects are addressed to an extent, I would say, it may bring us some hope of peace.
The three questions on your screen are from us. We're trying to answer them, but we'll take questions from the audience here on.
Thank you, panel. It was really fascinating what all you said. And I have just one question that might be a bit double-barreled, and this is to do with the legitimacy of conquest, and secondly, the legitimacy of past ownership. As an example, can the Tang dynasty, this is about the 7th century, 7th, 8th century, claim Samarkand because they'd gone through the Gansu corridor and taken that entire area? Can Tibet claim 3 provinces of China because they'd taken it in the 17th century and lost it just because the Manchus in 1751 took Lhasa? Could the Indians go even further back to the Kushans and claim the area of Bactria and also of, you can say, what is now Xinjiang? And if you want to match the Jews, can the Vedic Indians claim Lake Balkash along with the Zoroastrians, and when one split to the west, another came down south? So what is the legitimacy of conquest today and the legitimacy of ownership?
Thank you. I thought the whole point of the post-war conventions that have been established was the sovereignty and inviolability of borders as they stand. There's this very interesting speech that David Ben-Gurion made on when he announced the creation of Israel, where he said Israel will now want to live in peace with its neighbors within its borders, but it never specified the borders. The borders were continuing to expand from 48 to 49, so that, as they said, they could have secure and defensible borders. But I think, when you look at the entire ruck, that Ukrainian sovereignty was inviolable and Russia violated that. It's another thing that you have different sets of standards. Show me the person and I'll show you the rule. We are seeing that typical duplicity, but it shouldn't take, because if we gave up that premise, then the alternative is definitely inferior to the imperfection that you have today. That's one point I'll have. The second is, occupation is definitely a cost. Israel did occupy Gaza from 1967 to 2005. 2005, it eventually withdrew. And Ariel Sharon was the man who withdrew Israel out of Gaza, because they realized it is expensive. Today, the costs are not just financial or military. Serious Israeli academics, writers, historians, journalists are questioning, we are destroying the essence of the Jewish state as conceived by its founding fathers. This is not the country that we had in mind. That occupation is also imposing a cost on the Israeli psyche. You see a people which are unrecognizable from those 20 years or 25 years ago in terms of their ideological makeup. So, yes, those costs are there to pay.
We have one more. I think somebody stood up with a question. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Namaskar, sir. And it had been very nice to be here and to listen this talk and to upgrade the knowledge, to update the knowledge. Two our elite ambassadors are there. Other than these questions, my question to them is, how India is responding or dealing with this conflict, or how India should respond to this conflict. Both ways, how India is responding or how India should respond to this conflict, diplomatically or as a part of foreign policy. Thank you.
Okay, we have seen a clear shift in India's position. It has happened at a glacial pace, so you don't always witness the progression of the glacier. But from a point where we were ardent supporters of the Palestinian cause, to a point in 1992 when we established diplomatic relations with Israel, to a point in 2016 when Prime Minister Modi visited Tel Aviv and made a separate visit to Ramallah saying we are dehyphenating our Israel and Palestine relationship, to a point where we have actually abstained on some resolutions that came up in the last 2 years, is a distinct shift. What are the reasons for the shift? I think the easier one is that there is a strategic alignment with Israel. Israel is very useful to us, as we have discovered from Kargil to Sindhur. Second, there's an ideological affinity between the ruling government party here and the ruling party in Israel. And I think you see that in the effusiveness of the messages that go back and forth and all that. So yes, India's position has shifted. What should it be? My personal feeling, and I'm not in government and I'm not speaking for government, is we should start going back to some of that even-handedness, because there are costs associated with our current stance. They may not be immediate, but they'll be there.
May I, if I may add to respond to the question, September 2025, 158 countries out of 193 in the United Nations member states, they recognized the state of Palestine. India happened to be one of them. Number two, September 22, 2025, United Nations General Assembly voted 142-10, that is with 12 abstention for the New York Declaration. India also happens to be a member of that. Third, a most important point, we respect Palestine as a military man, I am saying. We have never said there, because our country is a pluralistic, secular country, some of us may object to it, but also we do not do anything to encourage terrorism. Terrorism has got no place on the face of the planet. That is the standing and interpretation I derive out of this. And one point, sir, if you allow me, because this I feel is very important to share, that out of all the options, there are net scenario buildings have been done by very specialist domain experts with whom I am in touch. There are 6 scenarios which have been built. One is an optimistic scenario, that peace is going to come. No way. This is no peace proposal document. This 20-point peace proposal, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for being blunt and blatant, it is no peace proposal. It doesn't go beyond a point. The moot question, will Hamas disarm? How are the Hamas going to disarm if there is no guarantee for their security? How are they going to disarm if there is no indication of two-nation theory? Second, there is a thing called as is, where is basis, status quo. Status quo doesn't give you any solution. And the third option is that you put it in a back burner, let things continue. So anyway, rather than going one by one option which comes to my mind, I tend to agree with what General Shergill sir said about the legitimacy issue, but I have a point to suggest that why not we try out the one-state policy. Everything west of the Jordan River, they come under one state, the binational which the ambassador was alluding to, partly I would say. Let's give it a try, let's push it. Let them learn how to coexist and live together peacefully. If not peacefully, at least learn how to coexist. That is what I have to submit. If there is a substantive takeaway from my side in this deliberation, it is the one-nation theory, not the two-nation theory that the world order should be actually propagating. Thank you.
Thank you, Sardar. Thank you. With that, we come to the end of this discussion. Thank you, audience, for being so participative. And my sincere thanks to Ambassador Suri, Ambassador Gurjeet, General Sudhakar, who finished so forcefully and looked for that one-nation theory. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. That was a very, very vibrant and informative session, and I think one of the best sessions of the day. I invite General Chitinder to kindly come up and give away the mementos to the very eminent panel. I invite everybody to please give the panel a big hand. They were really, really good. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. I now invite Brigadier Arora. Yes, please. Thank you very much. Well done. I now invite Brigadier Arora to kindly come and take on the next session. Good job.
Thank you.
Hello. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we have a UK delegation which is here for last 2 days. I am standing in for Mr. Bajwa, who's not taken ill. So it's left to me now to call them on stage, General Kandal and his team, for a participative session on our shared military heritage. The team is led by Major General John Kandal. General Kandal, originally from Signals, went into General Cadre and is the Deputy Force Commander of the UK Army, Field Army. Along with him, there are 5 more officers. Major Manish Chauhan, who is a surgeon. Then we have Major Sandhu, Major Hina, and I think Lieutenant Colonel Alice, she is not here. And Dr. Josen, who is the force behind the whole thing, who organizes this every year. And they've been coming here in last so many years, but this year they've come in full force and been through Amritsar, Firozpur, Nawashahar, and now here for next 2 days, participating with Military Literature Festival, Chandigarh. I now hand you over to Major Manish Chauhan, who has been here 3 months back, coordinated the whole thing with me to finalize the program of the contingent. Manish.
Good afternoon. Namaste. Sat Sri Akal, everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction, Brigadier Arora. I'm here to introduce my team and my seniors here from the British Army. We are on a India Heritage Visit 2025. It's a delegation of 12 people. Unfortunately, we can't make, there are few of us here for the panel. We'll see more of us tomorrow. So to introduce the team, Major General John Kandal. He's the Deputy Commander Field Army for the British Army currently. Formerly, he was the Deputy Commander 3 Div of the British Army, which was the Armoured Division. He also formerly worked in the intelligence and reconnaissance in his personal life outside the military. He will share his views with us on the heritage between the Indian and the UK Army. Then we have Major Hina Mujaria. She's one of the very few female Indian officers in the British Army. She's a GP by trade and has been in the Army Reserves for nearly 5 years. She will share her experience as a woman in the British Army as an Indian woman. My apologies. Then we have Kamaldeep Sandhu, Captain Kamaldeep Sandhu, who is formerly a major retired from the Indian Army and now currently serving in the British Army as a captain in the Royal Logistics Corps. He's also a well-read and well-educated person who got a degree from King's College in a master's in land warfare studies. Then we have with us Mr. Gurinder Josanji, who has been working on Saragari commemoration for the past 45 years. He's a gentleman who single-handedly built Saragari museums and commemorative events around the world. He started from where he lived in Canada, and then he's worked all over the world. He's got 60 museums where he commemorates the Saragari every year. He has been working with the British Army for the past 11 years, bringing the delegations to India and celebrating Saragari around Amritsar, Firozpur, Taran area, and going and speaking to the village where the Saragari soldiers came from. We'll hear more about his experience from himself shortly. Thank you very much on that.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Super. I'm Major General John Kendall. I'm the Deputy Commander. Can you hear me now? Sure. I'm Major General John Kendall. I'm the Deputy Commander of the British Army for our Field Army. So why is shared heritage important for our two great nations? Well, within the United Kingdom, we're becoming a more diverse nation with a more diverse army. And therefore it's important for us to recognise the contribution of all our citizens and their heritage. There's a moral and a practical reason. But also, heritage shapes strategic culture, how nations think, how nations fight. And I'd like to pay tribute to India, as the country has raised the largest ever all-volunteer force in the Second World War, a country that fought on every front in the First World War. And as we'll learn later, through the Battle of Saragari, a country that lives military values such as courage, discipline and loyalty in the way few can. Now today, Britain and India have significant defence cooperation. For the army, we have exercised a Jaya Warrior, where our soldiers work together. We have recently exercised our carrier strike groups together. And of course, it is a two-way exercise. And our Royal Air Force will soon be sending pilots to India for training. And I think that's symbolic of how strong our shared heritage and our present ties are. It's also important to listen to different perspectives. And today, I've particularly enjoyed listening to perspectives on China and Gaza, and listening to military thought around multi-domain operations, Operation Sindhu. And for the UK, we have slightly different focuses, but your perspectives still add value. We're slightly more interested in Russia and how we support Ukraine. We have, for example, trained over 60,000 Ukrainian soldiers. We help train their commanders, help share intelligence with them, and we help equip them. So we know how good our training is, soldier for soldier, how good our equipment is, tank for tank, missile for missile. And that leads us to think about future war, and again, how our shared heritage teaches us things from history, whether it be the 1965 Indo-Pak war, or it be a more modern operation. And the reality is, and I speak now as a soldier, there are some things that are common within the nature of war. And for the land component, the ability to operate faster than the enemy through tempo, to create surprise and develop it into shock on the enemy is important. And the discussions today on how to do that have been really interesting. If we look particularly to the strategic challenges Britain faces and our observations from the Ukraine war, in the air component, how do you break the air denial? If you fly a fast jet over Ukraine or Russia today, it will be shot down very quickly indeed. So how do we create the mechanism to break the enemy's air defence when we are not able to do the traditional suppression of air defence as a planned phase? In the maritime component for the Navy, we have seen Ukraine deny the seas to Russia without having their own Navy. But also there are more modern terrains. In space, the interruption of that will not just break your communications, but the loss of position, navigation and timing will break the precision of your missiles. It will break your cryptography, your codes, because you cannot work without the timings from space. And in the land component, we're facing a new character of war. Neither side in Ukraine and Russia is able to fight out an all-out war all the time. It is a punctuated war. And as we develop amazing technology that communicates all the time, there is a reality it's a target all the time. So how do we knock out the enemy's ability to synchronize but protect our own? How do we cope with what we now call the near-surface war? That's not just drones, but flying so close that the enemy's countermeasures don't work. How do we protect our cities against the enemy's missiles? And for us facing Russia as a potential enemy, a country that focuses on the initial period of war and then switches to endurance. So our exercises that we've all grown up doing with the glorious attack, the fast charge, we cannot sustain that month after month after month. How do we then protect our people in the front line? And indeed, again, our shared heritage comes together. Just as the Indian Army and the British Army in 1915 dug trenches, we see very similar trenches today. But that is not just 1915, it is how do we add technology. We've heard today about drones. Last week on exercise, our Air Assault Brigade practiced using drones to carry first aid equipment to wounded soldiers. Because we know a wounded soldier today cannot be evacuated from the front line the day they are wounded necessarily. We may need to keep them alive for 3 days or 4 days. And it leads us to the question of how do we create a theory of victory? And our theories of victory are shaped by our culture and our history. So what is our way of war? And of course, the British will create a very Western way of war. By coming to events like this to hear a different perspective, we can modify that and perhaps be a little bit more scientific, a bit more driven by different ideas. We also heard an excellent analysis of some of the challenges of modern concepts like the centre of gravity and the idea of ends, ways and means as strategy. And I think the one comment I would finish on for our two great nations with a shared military heritage is that Lawrence Friedman, the great strategist, said, the key to all strategy is alliances. And as the democratic world faces the autocratic world, alliances and partnerships have never been more important. So I'm very proud and pleased to be here today to represent the British Army and to share in our military history together, but to look forward as well. Thank you.
General, thank you very much for those words and sharing your experiences over the last few days as well. May I now invite Major Hina Mujaria to speak about her experience in the British Army as one of the only few Indian female doctors.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Major Hina Mujaria. I'm a medical officer in the Britain. Just speak louder. Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, that's loud. My name is Major Hina Mujaria. I'm a doctor in the Army Reserves, and I'm also a GP with a specialist interest in ENT in my civilian career. So, what's my connection with India? I was born in the UK, but my grandparents were born in Gujarat, and from there, my parents were born in East Africa. Even still, we celebrate Diwali, Navratri, everything. We still speak some of the language, we eat the food, and that's what I like to say to people, that I have an Indian heart, I have an Indian stomach as well. In the past year, I've managed to do a lot with the British Army. I've had a really good, extremely enriching career in terms of my medical officer side. So I've been able to go to Cyprus, the Falklands, Kenya on an exercise, and now to India on an engagement piece as well. I've managed to learn so many different skills with the military that includes working under pressured conditions, learning to resource carefully, being able to speak publicly, and many, many more. And it's been an incredible experience, and I would recommend it to anyone. In the UK, so less than, at the point of when I joined, less than 2% of the British Army was female and ethnic as well. So there aren't that many people that fit how I look. But it is changing, and it's extremely diverse now. They're very open, very welcoming. They want to see more people with different cultures. So I've been extremely just overwhelmed with how well received I am as a British Indian woman in the military. So the last thing I want to say is that earlier the cadets were asking me what would they be able to do to prepare for a life in the military. And I wanted to give a few lessons that I've learned back to them. So I would say celebrate with small wins. Build your networks, so make sure you go and say hi to the person that you think, oh, I'm not sure whether I should. Build your networks and start doing it now. You don't know what's going to come back to you in the future. Change starts with you. When you walk into a room and you feel like you should be saying something, then do it. Say something. Speak your truth. Speak in the room where you've been given a seat at the table. You cannot be what you cannot see, and that's what I kept telling myself when I wanted to quit at times in the British military. Representation does matter. It really matters, especially now more than ever. And diversity fits into that as well. Make sure you're heard in the room. And your difference is your superpower. So the fact that I have this rich background, and we're here today to celebrate, or this trip to celebrate Sardar and all of the rich history, it makes me extremely proud for where I come from and what's to come in the future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Major Hina, for sharing your experience and your deployment in the British Army. May I now invite Captain Kamaldeep Sandhu to speak a few words about his experience from the Indian side, because he was part of the Indian Army previously and then joined the British Army. How does he compare the both?
Thanks, Manish. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, thank you very much for this opportunity to come and speak in front of such auspicious audience. Thanks to everyone for organizing it. When I was informed that I'm part of this delegation coming to India, which is coming for a cultural engagement visit, I couldn't understand it. I've heard and read about defense engagement, military exchanges, staff talks, etc. I couldn't quite understand what benefit will I draw, what we will draw from a cultural engagement visit. But last 2-3 days that we have spent here moving up and down the whole of Punjab has been an eye-opener, and I thought I'll share that experience. As Manish mentioned, and some of you will already be aware that my early formative years were spent here in India, in the Indian Army. My youth was spent here, so my muscle memory and my brain cells, the memory that they carry, is pretty much groomed by the Indian Army, NDA, IMA, and then 6 para. So when I moved to UK, got commissioned through Sandhurst, and as a young officer, I was in my officer's mess for attending a dining in. Of course, I was the junior most, and I was calling everyone as sir. And I was pulled aside by the regimental 2IC, and he said, call us by our first name. Don't call us sir. And that is something I couldn't comprehend at that time. How am I supposed to call my regimental 2IC by his first name? I imagine myself doing it here in India. And I also imagine the consequences. I was never proceeding on annual leave ever again. That's for us to begin with. But then it took a while. The more time I spent in the UK, understanding the society and the culture, it made more sense. Now, armed forces reflect the culture of the society that it emanates from and the society that it protects. Armed forces should reflect that, should reflect the society that it protects. British Army, armed forces, it's very multicultural, and as you can see, the backgrounds that we are coming from that form part of British Army now. So it's essential for British Army to understand that culture, and that's where military engagement begins at grassroots level, to understand the culture, and that's what we've been doing for the past 2-3 days, meeting school children, meeting veterans, to understand the values that define us, all of us who have gone from here. And I think that forms the bedrock of any military engagement or defense diplomacy. It should begin at the grassroots level with cultural engagement, where people and armed forces talk to each other and learn from each other. That'll become the linchpin of our defense diplomacy, which we all know is a potent tool of foreign policy. I think I'll end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Captain Kamaldeep Sandhu, for sharing all of that story from Indian Army to the British Army and your experiences. May I now invite Dr. Gurinder Pal Josan Paji to speak a few words in 5 minutes, then I'll open the floor for the audience to ask you a few questions.
सत श्री अकाल जी, आवाज़ आ रही पीछे? मैं पंजाबी जी बोलांगा, सीधी डायरेक्ट गल। नाम मेरा जी डॉक्टर गुरिंदर पाल सिंह जोसन, ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਦਾ ਜੰਮਪਲ ਤੇ ਪਿਛਲੇ 28 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ 'ਚ ਰਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਸ਼ੌਂਕ ਸੀ। ਵਰਲਡ ਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਧਾਰੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੋਚ ਹਾਂ, 5th ਡਿਗਰੀ ਬਲੈਕ ਬੈਲਟ ਜਾਪਾਨ ਤੋਂ। ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਚ ਤੇ ਬਰੂਸਲੀ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ ਹਾਂਗਕਾਂਗ 'ਚ। ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ 1.25 ਲੱਖ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਟ੍ਰੇਨ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕਾ। ਅਮਰੀਕਾ 'ਚ 25,000 ਨੂੰ ਟ੍ਰੇਨਿੰਗ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ। ਈਵਨ ਹਰਭਜਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੋਗੀ ਦੇ 5,000 ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਗੋਰੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਵੀ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ 57 ਈਅਰ ਦਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਅਜੇ ਵੀ ਸੈਲਫ ਡਿਫੈਂਸ ਕੈਂਪ ਲਾਉਣਾ, 15 ਪੱਥਰ ਦੀਆਂ ਟਾਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਦਿਨ ਸੈਕਿੰਡ ਤੋੜ ਦਿੰਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਸਿਟੀ ਮੈਰਾਥਨ 26 ਮਾਈਲ ਰੇਸ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਪਿਛਲੇ 28 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਦੌੜ ਰਿਹਾ। ਫੌਜਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਕੱਠੇ 4 ਵਾਰੀ ਦੌੜੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਮੁੱਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਆ ਜਾਈਏ। ਮਿਲਟਰੀ ਲਿਟਰੇਚਰ ਫੈਸਟੀਵਲ ਨਾਲ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 5-6 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਮੈਂ ਜੁੜਿਆ ਸੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਸਾਰਾਗੜੀ ਫਾਊਂਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਵਰਲਡ ਫੇਮਸ ਆ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਬ੍ਰਿਗੇਡੀਅਰ ਅਰੋੜਾ ਜੀ ਹਨ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਫੈਲਾਉਣ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਮਯਾਬ ਹੋ ਸਕੇ। ਅਤੇ 21 ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਚੂਜ਼ਨ ਪਰਸਨ ਹੈਗਾ। 42 ਈਅਰ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਕੰਮ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ। ਬੈਟਲ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ 'ਚ ਯਾਦਗਾਰ ਬਣਾਈ ਸੀ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ 'ਚ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਰਾਗੜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਨਾਲ ਹੈਗਾ, 1902 ਵਿੱਚ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ। ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਸੀ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਪਲੇਸ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਹਰਿਮੰਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਹੈ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਉੱਥੇ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕਣ ਆਏਗਾ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਯਾਦਗਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖੇਗਾ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਹਾਦਰੀ ਦਾ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗੇਗਾ। ਇਹ ਰੀਜ਼ਨ ਸੀ। ਫਿਰੋਜ਼ਪੁਰ ਵਾਲਾ ਪਾਇਨੀਅਰ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਇਲਾਹਾਬਾਦ ਨੇ 1904 'ਚ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਸੀ, 2000 ਪਾਉਂਡ ਚੰਦਾ ਇਕੱਠਾ ਕਰਕੇ, ਪਰ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ। ਖੈਰ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਬੰਦ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਉਸ ਦੀ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਭਾਲ 82 ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ। ਭਗਤ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਹੋਈ। ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੀ ਬੜਾ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਅਤੇ ਲਾਈਫ 'ਚ ਕਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਚੰਗਾ ਕੰਮ ਵੇਖੇਗਾ ਤੂੰ ਖੁਦ ਕਰੀ, ਨਾ ਕਦੀ ਫੰਡ ਰੇਜ਼ ਕਰੀ ਅਤੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਦਾ ਇੰਤਜ਼ਾਰ ਕਰੀ। ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਮੈਂ ਉਹੀ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਪੂਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ। ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਬੈਟਲਫੀਲਡ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਗਿਆ ਮੈਂ, ਉਸ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ 'ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਦੇਖੇ। ਜਿਹੜਾ 1901 'ਚ ਮੀਨਾਰ ਬਣਿਆ ਸੀ ਲੌਕਹਾਰਟ ਦੀ ਬੈਕ ਸਾਈਡ 'ਤੇ, ਉਹ ਡਿਸਟਰੋਏ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਸੀ ਕਾਫੀ। ਉੱਥੇ ਮੈਂ 90 ਬਾਈ 45 ਫੁੱਟ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਰੀਕਨਸਟਰਕਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਾ ਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਨੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਹਿਸਟੋਰੀਕਲ ਸਾਈਟ ਡਿਕਲੇਅਰ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ। ਮੈਦਾਨੀ ਏਰੀਆ ਹੰਗੂ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ 43 ਕਿਲੋਮੀਟਰ ਥੱਲੇ ਮੈਦਾਨੀ ਏਰੀਆ, ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਰੀਕੈਪਚਰ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਮਾਊਂਟੇਨ ਗਨਸ ਗਈਆਂ ਸੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਮਦਦ ਵਾਸਤੇ 14 ਸਤੰਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਪਰ ਪੁੱਜੀਆਂ ਸੀ 1897 'ਚ। ਉਸ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਇੱਕ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਆ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਨਗਰ 'ਚ, 25-30 ਹਿੰਦੂ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ, ਸਿੱਖ ਅਤੇ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਚਨ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਨ, ਬਾਕੀ ਸਾਰਾ ਔਰਕਜਾਈ ਏਰੀਆ ਹੈਗਾ। ਉਸ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ 'ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਚਰਚ ਹੈਗਾ, ਇੱਕ ਮੰਦਿਰ ਸੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ 47 ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਸ਼ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਇੱਕ ਪੀੜੇ ਸਾਹਿਬ 'ਤੇ, ਪਰ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਕਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਿਆ। ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ, ਇੱਕ ਖਾਲੀ ਪਲਾਟ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਤਿੰਨੋਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਇਕੱਠਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਬਣਾ ਦੇਣਾ, ਇਹਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਰੱਖ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਰਾਗੜੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਭਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਪਹਾੜੀ 'ਤੇ ਸਾਰਾਗੜੀ ਹੈ। ਪਿਛਲੇ 3 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਬਣ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਬੜਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਰਨਿੰਗ ਹਾਲਤ 'ਚ ਹੈ। ਇਹ 2 ਯਾਦਗਾਰਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਬਣਾਈਆਂ ਹਨ। ਫਿਰ 21 ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਵਿਜ਼ਨ ਆਇਆ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਪੋਰਟਰੇਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਫੋਟੋ ਨਹੀਂ ਖਿੱਚੀ ਗਈ। ਲੜਾਈ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਬੈਟਲ ਤੋਂ 3 ਦਿਨ ਬਾਅਦ ਖਿੱਚੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਸਨ ਗੁਲਿਸਤਾਨ 'ਚ। 21 ਦੇ 21 ਪਰਿਵਾਰ 96 'ਚ ਮੈਂ ਲੱਭ ਲਏ ਸੀ ਪੂਰੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ 'ਚੋਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ 100 ਸਾਲ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ 97 'ਚ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਫੀਚਰਸ ਲੈ ਕੇ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ 15-16 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਉਮਰ ਤੋਂ 70-80 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਉਸ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਜੇ 25 ਫੋਟੋਆਂ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕ GS ਬਿਲਿੰਗ ਨਾਭਾ ਸਕੂਲ ਤੋਂ PPS ਨਾਭਾ ਦੇ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ, ਜਨਰਲ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਹੀ ਪੜ੍ਹੇ ਆ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ, ਜਨਰਲ ਸ਼ੇਰਗਿੱਲ ਜੀ। ਉਸ ਟੀਚਰ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਫੀਚਰਸ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਪੋਰਟਰੇਟ ਤਿਆਰ ਕਰ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਚ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੋਏ। ਅਤੇ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 10-11 ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ 'ਚ 21 ਦੇ 21 ਪੋਰਟਰੇਟ ਤਿਆਰ ਹੋ ਗਏ। ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਸਟੇਟ ਵਾਰ ਮਿਊਜ਼ੀਅਮ 'ਚ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਹਨ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ, ਅਤੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ 60 ਗੈਲਰੀਜ਼ ਮੈਂ ਬਣਾ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਯਾਦਗਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਇਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ। ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਅਤੇ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਆਰਮੀ ਵੈਟਰਨ ਆਫਿਸਰਸ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਨ ਅਸੀਂ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਬੈਟਲ ਫੀਲਡ 'ਤੇ ਜਾਣਾ, ਪਰ ਉੱਧਰ ਦਾ ਵੀਜ਼ਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਸੀ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਾਲ 28 ਨਵੰਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੋਲਡਨ ਗੇਟ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਦੇ ਥੱਲੇ ਉਹ ਤਿੰਨੋਂ ਮੋਨੂਮੈਂਟ ਜੋ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਬੈਟਲ ਫੀਲਡ 'ਤੇ ਹਨ ਇੱਥੇ ਬਣਾ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਹਨ। ਅਤੇ ਅਗਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਮਈ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਦੀ ਜੁਕੀਸੀ ਪਾਰਕ 'ਚ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਾਰ ਫਸਟ ਅਤੇ ਸੈਕੰਡ ਦੇ ਮੋਨੂਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੀਸਰਾ ਸਾਰਾਗੜੀ ਦੀ ਸਪਿਰਿਟ ਆਫ ਵਾਲ ਬਣ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਸਟੈਚੂ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਪੁੱਜ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਨ। ਅਸੀਂ ਮਈ 'ਚ ਸਾਰੇ ਰਲ ਕੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਓਪਨਿੰਗ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਛੋਟੇ ਛੋਟੇ ਕਾਰਜ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਸਾਰਾਗੜੀ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਮੋਟ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਅੱਜ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਾਈਡ ਹੋ ਗਈ। ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੱਥ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। 2013 ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਹੋਈ, ਅਸ਼ੋਕ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਰਾਈਟ ਪਰਸਨ ਹਨ। ਉਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਲੈਫਟੀਨੈਂਟ ਕਰਨਲ ਸੀ ਸਨ, ਮੇਜਰ ਅੱਜ ਮੇਜਰ ਜਨਰਲ ਜੀ ਹਨ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ 'ਚ ਮੇਰਾ ਸਾਥ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਅਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਪੂਰਾ ਟਰੈਵਲ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਹਾਈਲਾਈਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਦੌਲਤ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਬਹੁਤ ਤੇਜ਼ੀ ਨਾਲ ਫੈਲਿਆ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਆ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਆਰਮੀ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਛਲੇ 5 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਕੋਲੈਬੋਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ, ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਆਰਮੀ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਜੇ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਆਰਮੀ। ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਹੋਰ ਫੀਲਡ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ। ਭਾਈ ਮਰਦਾਨਾ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਛਲੇ 10 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਸੰਭਾਲਣ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਦਾ ਕਾਰਜ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਹੀ ਸੀ। ਹੁਣ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਬੱਚੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਮਾਸਟਰਸ ਕਰ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਹਨ। ਇੱਕ ਬੱਚੇ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੁਬਈ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਜੋਬ ਦਵਾਈ ਸੀ। ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣੇ ਲੇਟੈਸਟ ਮੇਰੀ ਬੁੱਕ ਰਿਲੀਜ਼ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਾਲ, ਚਾਂਦਨੀ ਚੌਂਕ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ। ਤਿੰਨੋਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ 350 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਮਨਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਾਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਤਿੰਨਾਂ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ 2 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਸੀ। ਭਾਈ ਮਤੀ ਦਾਸ, ਭਾਈ ਸਤੀ ਦਾਸ, ਭਾਈ ਦਿਆਲਾ ਜੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅਕਾਲ ਤਖਤ ਸਾਹਿਬ 'ਤੇ ਗਿਆ, ਗਿਆਨੀ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ। ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰੋ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਲਿਖਣ ਦੀ। 6 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਲਿਖੀ। ਪਹਿਲੇ ਇੱਕ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਸੀ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀ ਲਈ 5 ਸਿੰਘ ਗਏ ਸੀ, 3 ਨੇ ਦਿੱਤੀ, 2 ਨੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤੀ? ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਛ ਲੱਭ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਲਿਖਿਆ। ਸੈਕਿੰਡ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਸੀ, ਤਿੰਨੋਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਹੋਏ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਤੇ ਯਾਦਗਾਰ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ? ਉਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਖੋਜ ਕਰਕੇ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਕਰਿਆਲਾ ਪਿੰਡ 'ਚ ਭਾਈ ਮਤੀ ਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਅਸਥੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਸਨ। ਉਹ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਲੱਭ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਲਿਆਂਦੀ ਗਈ। ਭਾਈ ਸਤੀ ਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਰੂਹ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿੰਜ ਕੇ ਸਾੜ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਸਵਾਇਸ਼ ਬਸੀ ਜਮਨਾ 'ਚ ਵਹਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਸੀ। ਭਾਈ ਦਿਆਲਾ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਬਾਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ, ਮਿੱਝ ਅਤੇ ਹੱਡੀਆਂ ਅਲੱਗ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਸਨ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਵਹਾ ਦਿੱਤੇ। ਸਿਰਫ ਭਾਈ ਮਤੀ ਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ 2 ਫੜ ਸਰੀਰ ਸੀ, ਉਸ ਦਾ ਸੰਸਕਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਉਸ ਦੀਆਂ ਅਸਥੀਆਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਗਈਆਂ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਡੇਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਨ, ਬਾਬਾ ਪਰਾਗਾ ਜੀ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ 'ਚ ਇੱਕ ਚੌਂਕ ਪਰਾਗ ਦਾਸ ਹੈਗਾ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਯਾਦਗਾਰ ਵੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਬਣੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਉਸ ਪਿੰਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਛਿੱਬੜਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਲਾਸਟ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਨ, ਰਵਿੰਦਰ ਕੁਮਾਰ ਛਿੱਬੜ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਲੱਭਿਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹਵੇਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਛ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਸਦਕਾ ਇਹ ਖਿਆਲ ਆਇਆ ਵੀ ਬਗਦਾਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਚਲਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਬਿਲੋਲ ਦਾਨਾ ਦੀ ਕਬਰ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਥੜਾ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੈ। ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਸੁੰਨੀ ਬੋਰਡ ਨਾਲ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਵੀ ਦੇ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ। ਉੱਥੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਮਿਊਜ਼ੀਅਮ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਜਲਦੀ। ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣ ਸਕਦਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਕਬਰਿਸਤਾਨ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਬਣ ਸਕਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਉਸ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ 'ਤੇ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸਥਾਪਿਤ ਕੀਤਾ। ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸੇ ਸਾਲ 29 ਸਤੰਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਅਜ਼ਰਬਾਈਜਾਨ ਬਾਕੂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਜ਼ਰਬਾਈਜਾਨ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਚਲਾਇਆ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਮੂਲ ਮੰਤਰ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਛੋਟੇ ਛੋਟੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨ 'ਚ ਮੇਰਾ ਕੰਮ ਆ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟੀਕਲੀ ਕਰਨਾ, ਨਾ ਕਿ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ। ਮੈਂ ਐਕਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਦਾ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ। ਹੁਣ ਲਾਸਟ 'ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਨਕਲੂਜ਼ਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹਾਂਗਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਬਹਾਦਰ ਯੋਧੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ ਹਰੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਨਲਵਾ ਜੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹਰੀਪੁਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਫੋਟੋ ਪੋਰਟਰੇਟ ਸਥਾਪਿਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਅਤੇ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ 1.5 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਟੈਚੂ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਪੂਰਾ ਮਿਊਜ਼ੀਅਮ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਕਾਬਲ ਦਰਿਆ ਦੇ ਕੰਢੇ 'ਤੇ ਅਕਾਲੀ ਫੂਲਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਸਮਾਧ ਜੋ ਕਿ 202 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਬਣਾਈ, ਉਹਦੀ ਮੈਂ ਰਿਪੇਅਰ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਵਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ। ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਤੱਕ ਉਹ ਕੰਪਲੀਟ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਅਤੇ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਸਦੀਆਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਇਸ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਨੂੰ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਲਾਂਗੇ। ਇੰਨਾ ਹੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਮੈਂ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਚਾਹਾਂਗਾ। ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।
Thank you, Gurinder Paji, Dr. Gurinder Pal. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ. You've done a lot in the community, so thank you for sharing all of that. I know you can go a long time with the achievement that you've done. So thank you for sharing all of that. We've got a few minutes, only a few minutes. General, are you okay to take some questions from the floor? May I invite the floor for if they have any questions? Can we get a mic to the gentleman, please? Ek mic de do, please.
Take this.
My question is for Captain Sandhu. There are people who say that the British Indian Army was more representative of the diverse Indian society than the Indian Army today. What's your impression? It's been claimed that the officer class of the Indian Army today is drawn largely from a few communities. Do you think that's true?
Well, British Indian Army, both it grew and then shrank. During the World Wars, it grew tremendously, and then it again shrank down between the interwar period and post Second World War. But every time it changed its size, it definitely reflected the span of territory that they controlled. So the army had always reflected the society from which it came or it was trying to protect. Currently, again, as I said, it's very diverse and inclusive. There are soldiers from South Asia, there are soldiers from Caribbean countries, from Europe, because that's how the society is in England. And if the army or if the armed forces don't change, it doesn't change going forward and reflects what the society is, there'll be a huge problem in the coming years. I think the same can be said with the Indian Army as well. I mean, we are pretty much diverse and represent all sections of the society in every way, at all levels. Yes, before independence, the officer cadre of the British Indian Army was predominantly British. Those things have changed. There are officers of different backgrounds at various ranks in all three services. So I hope that answers your question, sir. Thanks.
Thank you, Kamal. Any more questions I can take?
Yeah. Hello. Am I audible? General, firstly, compliments. It's highly, I would say, very delightful interaction. One never expected to get this kind of a platform and engage with the officers of Indian. Am I audible, sir? Okay. I'll keep it close. Firstly, thank you so much, General, and the entire team, the delegation. My question relates to India and United Kingdom. Our relations are very exclusive and special. It goes a long way. And given the history that we all have grown with, how best the changing world order is actually giving rise to very polarized centers of turbulence, I would say, world over. And my focus is onto the South Asia subcontinent. Okay. So what role can the British Army play? Firstly, to bring some kind of stability, normalcy, peace and harmony, one. Number two, to prevent a radicalization which is becoming rampant. radical. I'm sure you are also going through a similar journey in UK as well. And third and most important thing is, how best can we prevent issues like tariff and causing, compounding the turbulence in the world order?
Thank you. That's a very good question indeed. I think the first thing I would do is refer us to the last part of the talk and say this isn't for Britain to come in as a former colonial power to come back to colonies and tell people. I think we'd all agree that would be a bad idea. But it is for us to do things through alliances and partnerships and international government organisations. So the place I think that Britain can play is as one supporting governments, supporting international government organisations, the rule of law and international law. The United Kingdom already has significant partnerships in training and supporting other countries in Asia. We have strong diplomatic relations. So I think it's for Britain to play its part as a piece of the team, but it is for the region to lead. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. That was a well-put question and equally well answered. Thank you very much. Time for more questions. Please, anybody, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Gentleman in the back.
सर इसमें मेरा क्वेश्चन तो नहीं है, मैं भी अब चूँकि पाजी ने पंजाबी में बात की थी तो मैं भी उनके लिए मैं कुछ कहना चाह रहा था, तो पंजाबी में ही बात गल कर लेना कि मिलिट्री लिटरेचर फेस्टिवल ने 9th एडिशन है और इन्होंने बहुत ही सानू इनलाइटन किया अबाउट मिलिट्री लिटरेचर एंड मिलिट्री हिस्टरी के बारे अजे तक। बट अज भाजी ने सुन के भाजी ने जड़ियाँ भी चीज़ां जेड़े भी मैमोरीअल्स बनाने की गल की है पहली बारी पता चलिया है और जान के बहुत ही ज़्यादा खुशी हुई है। मैं चाहना कि सारे ही जोरदार तालियां डॉक्टर बिंदर भाजी लिए हो जान और जो भी काम इन्होंने अगे करने ने असी चाहते हैं कि साडा दिलों मन तो सहयोग रहे। बहुत ही वधिया काम वही दस्या कि जिस तरह मिलिट्री लिटरेचर फेस्टिवल सानू इत्थे जागरूक कर रहा, तुसी दुनिया नूं जागरूक कर रहे हो साडी हिस्ट्री के बारे। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और इंग्लिश डेलीगेट का भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कि यू हैव कम ओवर हेयर एंड शेयर्ड योर एक्सपीरियंसिस एंड ऑल दैट एंड वी विश कि टुगेदर वी कैन ब्रिंग पीस एंड हारमोनी not in our society but at the globe level itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We all are very proud of achievements that Dr. Gurinder Pal Paji has achieved and the project that he keeps working on. I can take some more questions. Anybody has any further questions?
Yes.
We got quite a lot of NCC cadets here. Do you have any questions for the panel at all? If not, कोई ਤੁਹਾਡਾ कोई question है किसी ਦਾ panel ਦੇ ਲਈ कोई भी गल पूछनी होवे किसी ਤੋਂ नहीं? I have a question then sir, if that's okay. Yeah, I have a question if that's okay. I'll if you have time. Yeah, sure. General, as you know, I've been working in the British Army for the past 18-19 years, going from a soldier to officer and now a medical officer, a surgeon in the army. My second interest is in leadership. I'm a senior research fellow for the Center for Army Leadership. Now, you have visited India quite a lot of, multiple times, and the values and the culture that you learned quite a lot. I often joke with you that you are half Indian. So, what values do you take with you from India in your leadership?
Thank you very much. So the first bit is my grandparents met in Ferozpur, so maybe there is a little bit of Indian dust in my veins. I think there are two particular things I take about leadership coming to India. This is a nation of huge diversity and great age. In the United Kingdom, we will talk about something being 2,000 years old and say that's old. Your history goes much further back, your traditions go much further back. So I think it makes Indians naturally really good at strategic thinking and thinking in different groups. The second piece I take from my interaction with the serving and veteran soldiers and officers of the Indian Army. And what I see is an absolute underwriting of the principle of leadership by example. You are a combat experienced generation, and therefore you bring things that work. And when I go back to the British Army, yes, we have combat experience, but we have fought fewer armoured battles, fewer large-scale wars in my lifetime. So I think the key thing I take back is absolutely the leadership by example that the Indian Army, Air Force and Navy teach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General, for that insightful answer. May I now invite Brigadier Arora again on the podium to close up.
Thank you, Manish, and thank you, General Condell and his team for a session here. May I now request Lieutenant General T.S. Shergill, AVSM, to please come up on the stage and honor the delegation with the souvenirs of the festival. General Condell. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today's sessions have come to close. See you tomorrow morning, starting seated by 9:30. Tomorrow there's no ceremonies, so we'll start in time. At 9:30 be seated, say by 9:45 we'll start the first session. And thank you so much for all the patience and your participation. Thank you.